Recovering Out Loud podcast. I'm your host, Charles Van Laux, and today we have a very special guest with us, Dale Emme, who is the founder and executive director of Yellow Ribbon Suicide Prevention. Hey, Dale, how are you?
I'm doing well today. How about you, Charles?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you for taking some time out to come and speak with us today. And I wanted to mention, I'm personally appreciative that you've come and that you do this work because suicide is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. So, thank you for what you do, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. And anytime we can help spread the word, help somebody else understand what they can do, or help somebody else be safe, then I'm all for moving forward, helping that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love if you touched on kind of what your group does and how you guys got started and all that.
Well, we're a nonprofit, 501c3 charity. We got started. Actually, this is our 30th year. We got started because we lost our youngest son, Mike, to suicide
Sorry.
in September of 1994. It's been a number of years ago, but every day, anyone who's lost someone to suicide or to any issue, but especially to suicide, the loss doesn't go away. There's many days that seem like, as we call it, day one all over again. Um, but what we've done is we've tried to be. This is an organization that we're not a crisis line, but we connect with crisis lines and helped national crisis lines get developed. Back in the day, there weren't crisis lines that were actively recognized by the mental health field because they weren't proven. And but what we've done is that we are an organization that we describe ourselves as awareness and education. Um, we connect with schools, churches, youth groups, communities, um, whoever needs it, workplaces. There's many corporations and working environments that have people who are under such stress that they need help. So we do a lot of training in the schools and these other settings to let people know that, number one, that it's okay to ask for help, and secondly, how to be a link for that other person. And so we teach both sides of the scale there with our what we call our life skill, uh, and it's we try to be an organization that we don't have a lot of bells and whistles that somebody has to learn to develop in order to be able to help somebody. Um, as we always, I always like to describe it in that if you give a kid a problem, they're going to find the quickest, easiest solution to be able to take care of that. And that's what Yellow Ribbon is we're about trying to help a person at their time of need with the people that are around them helping at their level of comfort. So, um, somebody comes to you and is scared, doesn't know what to do with their life, and you're scared because you don't know, you don't want to say the wrong thing, you want to say something that's going to make it worse. The biggest thing I always tell people is first thing you do is just breathe. Don't try to jump right in with an answer. Just say, well, what can I do to help? And then listen. And there's so much of that we don't do, and not just nowadays, but it seems like nowadays it's really heightened. Um, but how it got started, like I said, we lost our youngest son in '94. Um, and what happened in those first few days kind of set the tone for our whole organization, our whole pathway today. That Mike's friends were coming to our home to see what's going on. Mike was very popular. He and I used to work on building classic Mustangs, and he was far beyond me after a while as to doing and fixing them up. And he was known for finding them in roadbeds or uh, junkyards out in eastern Colorado and other places that just he'd bring them home, fix them up as much as he could, and somebody would offer him something for it, and he'd uh, sell the car in better shape always than it was before, and use that money to go buy another one. So he was always a project person. as well as being a good student in school. Maybe not straight A, but he was good. But he was also in three of the bands, played trumpet and marching band, and all that type of thing. So he was well known in many different settings. Having a car, he was one of the only ones back in the day that had a vehicle. So if somebody needed to go somewhere and didn't have a car, whatever, he was the, as we always called it, Mike's taxi, and the kids would joke about it. And he'd see if somebody would have a problem somewhere, get stuck, um, in a date situation didn't go well, or they just their ride didn't come, they'd call him and he'd come get him. He'd say, "Just give me $1 for gas." That's back when $1 would pay for some gas. But he was well known for helping people, and they knew him as Big Mike and that type of thing. So Mustang Mike, and he would fix them up. So what happened after Mike died was we had lots of friends, his kids we didn't know, whatever, that knew him, showing up at our home that very first day. I remember one group of girls came to my wife and said, "What can we do?" She thought, "We don't know what to do." And my wife said, "If you were, don't do this. If you're ever in this need, reach out to somebody, reach out to your parents, their parents, um, to school counselors, to a teacher, to a friend, to the clergy, to somebody, and just say, I need help. I need something." The second day, kids came to us with people we didn't know and said, "Can you tell my friends what you told me yesterday, that it's okay to ask for help?" That became a standard for us, if you will, a trademark phrase on everything we have now, that we want to teach people that number one, it's okay to ask for help, and what to do, who to reach out to. We have these cards, and I can show you a little bit that this is the card, and where my little camera is. This is the card, and lots of those. It's on our website, the front, and it tells people where to go, who to reach out to, that type of thing. And then on the back of the card, it says what to do if somebody ever hands you a card. And there's like 15 million of these out. And what the simple thing is the back of the card tells you to stay with the person unless there's risk of harm. Listen to what they're having to say. Don't say it's no big deal or it'll be better tomorrow, because everybody's issue, everybody's story is a little bit different. Listen to what they're going through at that moment. But it also gives you a number on the back of the card. It says, get or call help immediately. Call 988, which is an accepted national number that connects you to all the crisis lines across the country, 24/7, people who want to help. Um, and what happened with us was that those cards, we wrote it down on little things, passed them out at Mike's services, and his friends wanted to make sure there was enough of them to go to the service. And so we had a friend run off about 500 of them, not as fancy as they are nowadays, but the kids were taking snippets of yellow ribbon and putting in their girls' hair, and the boys were hooking them onto their jackets and their hats. And um, this all happened. And so we said, you got to put yellow on the card, got to put a piece of ribbon on it. And the kids came and pinned 500 pieces of ribbon on 500 cards, went to the service. When it was over, the cards were all gone. And we thought, at that time, we were still just trying to get 1 hour ahead of us, to be able to go through losing. Mike was an exceptional young man, even at 17, and just we didn't know what to do with anything in our life. And to have those things gone, within a couple of weeks after Mike died, we get a phone call from somebody, a teacher in Wyoming, the state north of us, that the teacher said, "I've got a student here that came in and handed me one of these cards, and I'm calling one of the numbers on the back of the card. It just happened to be our number. Somebody had put our home number, of all things, on it, as well as the counselor's number and that type of thing." And they said, "How can we get your yellow ribbon program up here in Casper?" And they said, our kids up here need to know that it's okay to ask for help, and many of them need help. So what do? We had no idea that they had started sending cards, and we had no idea that that somebody thought there was a yellow ribbon program at that time. So we ended up, long story short, we ended up getting in touch with the principal of, of his high school, and he said, "Oh yeah, we've been copying and sending cards out to the kids. They've been wanting to know more what to do." And we asked the kids, "Where have you been sending them?" And the answer we got most commonly was everywhere, just everywhere. And within another week, we heard from a young girl in New Jersey, another one in Arizona, New Mexico. It started. It was a mushroom. It just began domino effect all over the place. And so what happened to us was we had people calling us saying, "How can we start your program in our area?" And it started us on a journey that's now been, as I said, 30 years in in counting. Um, we will continue doing this as long as there's a need, and I think unfortunately there's a greater need now than there ever has been. And we want people to know that it's okay to ask for help. So, and that's what's happened with us. We now have connections with schools in every state, 47 countries, um, just actively working on the program. And the best part about the program is it's something simple that people can learn, a life skill to do. The kids can learn, the youth can learn, they can take it home and share it with their parents, so their parents and grandparents can understand. They can take it with them to work. Adults can take these to work with them, and everybody can share how to help. So that's basically where we're at. We've um, just this past couple of weeks have just finished the full editing and upgrading of our elementary program. Little did we ever realize that we would need to have training for kids in elementary school, but the suicide rate among young kids of the elementary age has increased dramatically, as well as it is in the middle schools and the high schools and beyond. So, and we even have a senior program where we have a magnet that goes on the refrigerator that helps the seniors know that um, getting the blues is not a normal sign of aging. And if they need to, here's who to reach out to. So we try to look at the full gamut of what can we do to help. And that's our whole goal with everything that we do. So,
That's amazing. And what a beautiful way to honor your son's memory as well. And, and that process of reaching out for help, asking for help can be so difficult, whether it's, suicide or addiction or whatever it is, right? Getting to a place where we're humble enough to ask for that. So that's why I love this very unique approach of the cards, right? Because it takes that conversation of how do I ask for help? Where do I even start? Who do I talk to? It takes that whole conversation off the table. You just hand them a card and that's it.
mm-hmm.
I love it. It makes it so much simpler. And I think that it allows somebody who, might be terrified in that situation as a supporter to know what to do, to have some tools in those moments. So it's
Yeah.
amazing.
I always tell somebody that if, um, the whole idea with the card is just that, is that if somebody don't know what to do with their life, they can hand that card to someone. We have a story of a young man who went into an emergency room, of all places, back in Pennsylvania, and walked in, and he was so distraught. He had a card in his hand, and it was all crumpled up, and he couldn't get words out, didn't know what to say. When somebody's at that point of not knowing what to do with the next couple of minutes in their life, many times they can't express exactly what's going on. And he was trying to desperately to hand the card to somebody. They finally realized what was going on and were able to get the card open, read it, realized that it was a cry for help. And he's still in touch with us today. And
Wow,
that was 17 years ago.
beautiful.
So he's actually doing very well. Wrote to us yesterday. That kind of kind of touches you a little bit again every time I think about it. But
Absolutely.
And we tell people if somebody hands you that card, the number one thing to do is to look at the back of it where the ribbon isn't. And on the back, it says, stay, listen, get help. Stay with the person, listen to them. Got the number on there. But the first thing to always do, if you're ever not quite sure what to do when somebody, if you're worried about somebody, the best thing to do is to start the conversation. We like to tell people the yellow ribbon starts the conversation because so many people don't know what to say. If you're worried about somebody, um, and you ask them, are you thinking of harming yourself? Are you thinking of suicide? You're not going to be placing the thought in their mind if they don't already have it. What you're going to be doing is opening the door to them understanding that you're a possibility of somebody they could connect with. Not to have all the answers, but a link. We always tell people that the back of the card becomes it's to be a link for somebody else at your comfort level. If you're not a counselor, help them get to a counselor or get to whoever they need to get to at that time. So, and I'm
That's
rambling.
awesome. No, no, this is great. Absolutely. And I think being able to be that link for someone to a resource or whatever they need, I mean, that can literally be the difference in saving someone's life, as opposed to just, you know, swallowing what we feel, hiding it, doing all these different things. So that's beautiful. I'm really glad that you guys have that approach, and I think it makes it a lot more accessible too, and it opens the door to that conversation, which can be really difficult. Like we were speaking in our pre-show meeting about um, a a family, two kids, who were concerned about their mother, who had been suicidal for a long time, and they were able to help. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like the roles had reversed, um, and we know many kids who are out there worried about their family, worried about their parents or grandparents, and or whoever else it might be, um, and don't know what to do. Well, approaching them with something that can be a door opener, something that can be empower both of them, the mother or the girls. Um, that one young girl began the conversation with her mom by showing her the card, and as I kind of jokingly tell them, I had told that girl that day, I said, just she said, I don't know how to start. Talk to her. And I said, hand her this card. Tell her that this kind of strange guy from Colorado was talking to the school today, and he said we should all go home and share these with our parents. And she said, so I'm showing you. Have you ever seen it before? And I said, you don't have to come up with the last question first. Just ask them about it and just say, do you know of anybody that's ever thought of suicide? Ease into the conversation. Get them to give you an answer. And you'll get to the point where you can say, have you ever thought of suicide? And the minute they do, it opens that door. It kind of helps relieve things. And again, take a deep breath again. Um, I've been in a number of situations over the years that um, even with the work we do every day, I'm not a counselor, and I tell the kids I'm not. I'm a father who lost his son. Don't want anybody else to lose their child or their friend or their parent, anyone. But here's what to do. What's worked for us, and have kids now in our International Youth Council and our chapters around the country. I know we've got a number of youth clubs in Kansas that are just um, the kids are doing great things. They're even doing their own little videos and posting them online and um, coming up with uh, some great little songs with. Hopefully, they've gotten all the right permissions from the artists to play parts of the music on their things. But it's a local videos that they're using. Um, but the biggest thing is like that one, the mother last I heard is doing well because she got help. And she was at a point that if it had not been addressed, who knows how far it would have gone, to what limit. But we all need a time when we need to reach out to somebody, no matter what the issue is, whether it's suicide or addiction um, or whatever. And mental health has become such a it's always been an issue, but it's like it's more of a known, open, public can talk about it issue. In these last few years, especially since COVID, um, and social media just kind of breach off into that for a second, if you don't mind. That there's so much that with social media now that um, people can help a lot, but they can also dig at each other, and that's not a good thing. But if somebody's, social media can be that part where you can say, um, I don't need to put up with this. I don't need to listen to it. I can hang up. Now I try to let people know that if somebody's bothering you, bugging you, bullying you, um, teasing, whatever online, that's not good. And that's time again to reach out to somebody else and say, how do I deal with this? Because we don't want it to get to the point where there's many kids who have been bullied, shamed through social media by somebody who can be anonymous and get to the point where they start harming themselves because it becomes such a personal, uh, uncontrollable situation. So, so use the social media to help people. And if you know somebody who is being bullied, being shamed, being hurt, that's the way you can also again say it's okay to ask for help with that issue as well. So
And I love that slogan that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to bring it up, because with all of these topics, they've been, so they've been so taboo for such a
yeah,
long time. They've been hidden in the shadows, and now everything's being brought to light. So now we have to focus on it. And I love that you guys are taking this approach in the schools as well. You mentioned earlier that everyone has a seat at the table when it comes to this discussion. The kids, the parents, everybody. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about you mentioned that you're in the Westminster schools, and
yes,
you want those kids, you want the youth to be a part of the discussion, to lend some advice, because in this day and age of digital bullying, right, it takes it to a whole new level. So I love that approach of seeing what it is that the youth truly need, and getting their insight and feedback and everything.
yeah. Well, and what happens is we have, the minute, not the minute, but once we've done some training, done some presentation, if you will, of what the program is, and people understand the card and the concept with it. Um, it's very normal. I should say, it's not unusual to have many of the youth say, "Well, what can I do? How can I help? Let's be a part of this." That we have a club will start in a particular school, maybe one of the elementary schools or a couple of the middle schools here and the high school, where they've got a group of kids now who are saying, we want to make sure they move forward with it. The kids are now going in the second year, third year, beyond. You know, we've been doing it enough years here that the kids are now doing the presentations to the new kids coming into the class and the new year, but they're doing it with the help of the counselors. They'll have a counselor as well as a teacher. Uh, One of our staff, if we're, there was a couple here 2 years ago when I wasn't aware that there was a training going to be happening. Well, the kids did it, called us and said it's going to happen tomorrow. And would you like to show up? And we did. We showed up and sat in the back row and watched the kids and the counselors play our role, if you will, on how to present the cards, how to present the program, that type of thing. And it's not a long thing. It's not like something that's a whole day or half a day, even. You can present this kind of training in a short period of time to begin with. And then the kids have their clubs that they actually meet. One of the clubs meets once a week. One of them is every other week, I think it is, every third. And what they do is they have little projects that they do. And one of them was about a video where they can walk through this. They walked through the school, had little handwritten signs. So as the two girls started down the hallway with the music playing, another student would step in beside them with another sign that said it's okay to talk to somebody. Another one said bullying's not acceptable. somebody else popped up with a number that the mental health group in this area to get in touch with them, and just moved it on. It kept getting bigger and bigger. So the camera was kind of panning back, if that's the right word, to get all the kids into the picture. And then they've actually developed special posters that they have at the high school that have our logo and our information on them, and their school's mascot. And the mascot is holding a yellow ribbon, on his arm, and that type of thing. So that visual type of thing that the youth are coming up with lots of ideas about. Um, well, here's the understanding. It's okay to ask for help. Here's the tool, the card, and here's how we approach afterwards and move on. Um, but they're also saying, okay, what can we do to share this with somebody else? And they're also going to the local churches. They've gone to the local city council and presented things and gotten proclamations. And it just keeps moving forward with new ideas, new different directions. So, and the kids are always into some kind of project. One of the kids has a church that he belongs to that has, I believe it's 5 um, satellite locations. And he has now done a presentation with the youth pastor, and one of the local counselors goes with them, and they do a short presentation to the um, new satellite church youth group on a Wednesday night. And the neat thing about it is um, one of the things that happened to us early on with the program as well, a little sidebar here, was that we were approached by one of the authors of the Chicken Soup series of books, and they asked if they could write about our story, and we said yes, and it was published, and it had such a response to it that the Chicken Soup people asked Dar and I to rewrite our story and have it in the Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul.
Mm,
It's now
beautiful.
been in 4 of their books, teenage letters and stories, and that kind of thing. And many of the kids will take that story that was published in the Chicken Soup Teen Soul book, and they'll start off by reading that story, then handing out the cards in a group, and they'll explain the front and back of the card, and then open it up for some questions into the group and how they can help in their, whether it's a church group or the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts groups. So
That's fantastic. Wow, and that kind of reach that you guys have, that kind of growth to, continue your message and your work has continued to grow. You guys were on Oprah and the Today Show and all that.
yeah, it's kind of a little overwhelming when you have that kind of things happen to you. When we were on Oprah show, it was we didn't know what to expect, and they actually had producers and filmers that actually came to our home back in the day, and they I learned a whole bunch about how they film things. They have these little bitty railroad tracks actually that run through your living area and through the kitchen area into all this, and they had these little cameras were set on top of tracks running back and forth, so they were filming what the people who were here uh, doing the work, sending out cards to people. Because a lot of things that happen is we have schools who will call us and say, we need 1,000 of those cards because we're doing training here and that type of thing. And so we would be processing those. Um, Early on, also, because of Chicken Soup books, we had people writing to us. And back when people used to write hand letters, nowadays it's all emails and texts and that type of thing. And we still keep track of those and keep them all there. But we have well over 70,000 handwritten letters from people who've written to us. Some of them saying thanks for being there, thanks for doing the program. But a number of them of kids who've written to us or parents who've written to us and said thank you for having this program. My child is alive today because of, and they would tell us the story. Um, Very humbling all the way through, even to this day. We enjoy the work we're doing. It's sometimes very hard work, but um, if we save a life, that's what counts. And there's, according to the tracking that other people have done of our program, it's lives, many lives have been saved. So
Wow.
we'll keep doing it.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and I can't imagine what that would be like to have that many lives saved and be directly impacting. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I wanted to touch also on the intersection here of mental health and addiction, specifically with CIT officers. It's
Yeah,
kind of a relatively newer thing, and um, in our pre-show meeting, you were talking about how the CIT officers actually have different levels now, and they have people who are specifically trained, maybe not in your program specifically, but mental health and how to assist in these situations, because the solution isn't necessarily to arrest them and lock them up, right? The
right,
solution oftentimes that these CIT officers and others have is to get them to the help they need, you know?
right. And it may be to the, with having the CIT officers, and like I said, many of them, they have all different levels of training. Some of them have been doing CAT work for 6 months. Maybe they've been doing it for 6 years or whatever longer. Um, but there's also many areas that now have an actual um, trained mental health worker who works right on staff, is a member of the police department, works with the CIT officer, so that you have an actual CIT officer advising the other officers, guiding them if there's a situation they walk into that is a mental health, um, if they're needing to consider a mental health hold on somebody or mental health steps to take care of, rather than arresting someone. They can hopefully, I just lost my word, um, de escalate a situation if it's gotten to the point of where um, a normal police situation could escalate a mental health condition, uh, where the CAT officer can help recognize, first of all, what's going on, and recognize that this is not something we need to come in with the SWAT team, but we need to come in with a mental health person and have that mental health person right there with them already, and then have the references as to what do we have right here in this area that we can connect them to, who do they need to go see, whatever. And the CIT officers have gotten very, it's interesting to have people that have that background. I have such respect for the police already, police and fire, first responders, um, because they're going into situations they have no idea what they're walking into in most cases. Every situation is going to be different. But to be able to have the cross training of, this looks like it's going to come across a bit different, and know that it could escalate, but have the tools in their tool belt that know how to take care of it, how to help the person feel comfortable, how to help the person get to the help they need, but also how to have that person know that this isn't just a police issue coming at my door. This is somebody coming at my door that could understand what I'm dealing with right now, or my family is dealing with, in the other room while I'm answering the front door. So, very powerful tools that we're now beginning to see in many situations, many communities around the country. So I'm real tickled to hear about both of them, the CIT people that are on staff now in so many police departments, but also how many mental health people are working with the police department and the CIT, and actually as cross trained in the police, not police, the fire departments as well. Most of them have somebody on staff who can help them deal with the situation as much as help them deal with somebody else who has a problem as well. So, and it helps the entire staff, because when you've got a CIT officer on board in a police department, that person isn't there just helping outwardly in the public, but they're also somebody who can turn around and help debrief some of the issues that go on when the police officers all go back, back to their home port, the department, wherever they're going to be, they can sit down with them and say, "Here's what you guys all just saw. Here's what happened. Here's how we deal with it. Anybody have any problems or questions?" And it makes us all a lot more empowered to be able to help each other. So
That's beautiful, and that's a really good point that you bring up because a lot of these situations can be a cry for help. They can be, you know, and when the police get involved, sometimes it could escalate a situation. So that's fantastic that they have those CIT officers as tools. And I didn't even think about it, but yeah, that's very true that they could also turn around and assist the officers because that has to affect them on a daily basis. The things they go through, the things they
yeah,
see, and then those people have to go out back into society and function both as an officer and as a civilian when
yeah,
they're off duty, and that's definitely a need. So that's beautiful that they're
yeah.
assisting.
Because there's so many of them in the fire and police departments both. With you stop to think about it. We think of them as a police officer or as a fireman, but that police officer is also a parent. Uh, in most situations, they're a parent, they're a spouse, they belong to a church group. They might coach the high school team of whatever sport it might be. Um, it's just situation goes on. They're part of the community as well, just like you and I are, and we don't want them to be reacting to a situation from their employment that could affect how well they handle teaching the kids, and in soccer, in football, in lacrosse nowadays, whatever the situation might be. But it's important for them to work with that and the interpersonal relationships with each other. Um, there's so many times that I've talked to many officers that have said, oh, traditionally, when they first joined the force, however many years ago it was, there wasn't that understanding that they could be maybe telling a tale out of school here, but that they could be human as well as a police officer, and that they could have the ability to help the kids, on the street, stop and play basketball with the guys that are playing basketball in the neighborhood, you know, basketball court or whatever, all that type of thing. They're neighbors as well, and statistics have shown that when departments have CIT actively involved, um, situations are de-escalated quite a bit faster. I think it's like 50 to 75% faster
Mm, wow.
than normal. Um, Mental health situations of their own caliber go down. They're more willing to reach out for help themselves as well, which is going to help all of us all the way around.
That's
So,
beautiful. Yeah, and for our listeners out there, it's important to remember these things. I mean, we all have our own backgrounds, our own experiences, and with all of this stuff, but it's important to remember, those officers are humans as well. And if we had to day in, day out walk into situations where we don't know if we're going to have to defend ourselves for our lives or
yeah,
what's going to happen, I mean, that's to affect everyone. So, remember that next time we're, you know, dealing with an officer or whatever that is. And also that, if you are, or someone you know or care about, if you guys are struggling or having those suicidal kind of thoughts or anything like that, reach out to this group. I'll have all their information down in the description below, but there's always someone who can help. There's always a way out. There's always something that we can do, so you're not alone. Lots of people have gone through this and survived, and you don't have to go through it any longer. There's a way out that is not permanent, and we can fix this together. So, um, yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. It's all about coming together. It's all about helping your friend, helping your family, helping each other, and be willing to help yourself. Sometimes that's the biggest one. That's the roadblock we all have is that um, helping ourselves. Um, I go back to the analogy: if you fly, they always tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first, so that you'll be able to help everybody else. So uh, I've had to remember that over the years and put my oxygen mask on every day so that I can be available to help somebody else if they need it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it reminds me of within the coaching work that I do as well. It reminds me of self-care and boundaries, coping skills. I mean, all these things. And I think I'll put out an episode on coping skills and boundaries and all that stuff and self-care, self-love for everybody, because I mean that's something that we learn in recovery, but certainly lots of different people could utilize those things to help themselves, and to be able to listen to ourselves and know what it is that hurts us or makes us happy or whatever, because oftentimes we just push things down, right? Something little comes up in our daily life that we feel frustrated by, we push it down, right? Because we don't want to upset the other person, we don't want to push the envelope, we don't want to rock the boat,
Yeah,
right? But all we're doing is hurting ourselves by doing that, because the further you push that stuff down, the more often you do, it's going to come up in one way or another, it's going to explode out. It always does. So um, yeah, I'm very appreciative for the work that you do, and um, thank you for taking some time out to come and talk to us. Do you have any parting words for us?
if anything, would just be to remind people that just kind of like what you already said, but it's important for all of us to know that no matter what the subject is in our life that's ever hurting us, bothering us, whatever, that it's always okay to ask somebody else for help. Um, just because we do doesn't mean, and I even say this at the end of my presentations to the youth and adult audiences both, that just because that over the years, there's been many times that I've had to ask for help, not just to see a counselor, sometimes just to talk to a friend, just to bounce an idea or a problem over, with somebody, but to really just to say somebody. And just because I have doesn't make me any less of a man. It simply means I'm human. And I tell them in that same vein, if there's ever a day, whether it's today or 50 years from now, that you're ever at a point where you don't know what to do with the next couple of minutes in your life, reach out to somebody and ask for help. Because, and we even described the things where the night that Mike died, he reached out to six of his friends, not specifically telling them what was going on, but he was acting really different than he normally did. And if somebody ever does that, starts acting really different than they do, or they start giving things away, or um, just aren't themselves, or you just get a funny feeling that something's not right with Jimmy or Sandy or whatever, that it's okay to reach out to them. But it's okay to, if you're worried about a friend at school, it's also okay to talk to the counselor or the teacher about it, because you're not tattling if you're worried about somebody. You're telling or taking care of a friend, and that's a huge one. Over the years, we've always thought, I can't tell. Somebody says, I'm going to harm myself, but don't tell my parents, don't tell the school, promise me. But that's not a promise you want to keep, and you're not tattling on somebody when you're taking care of their life and helping them when they're at a road bump, speed bump that they don't know how to get over. So it's important to pass that on. And the other thing I always say is that you don't have to be the answer to everybody. If somebody comes to you with one of these cards that we're talking about, and they can find those on our website, yellowribbon.org, they can even go in there and get them printed and print some off right there. We want everybody to have those tools handy to share with others, whatever. But if you ever need, reach out to somebody. But if you ever somebody hands you something, don't just be normal. Don't try to not be somebody different. Breathe and just try to help at the level, your own comfort level. I say that so many times every day that if there's a day that if you're a counselor and you're worried about somebody and you just don't know what to do, help that person as much as you can and get them to the person that they can help. So we can't always be the counselor every day, but we can be a link to that next person what's going on, whether they need help with a math problem or they need help with what do I do with my life.
Yeah,
It's important that we learn how to take a deep breath and say, okay, what can I do to help you? So
absolutely. Yeah. And for our listeners out there, it's he spoke earlier about vulnerability and asking for help and all of those things. And that is the most courageous thing that you can do, because if you look into that mirror and you see something you don't like, you see something about your life you don't like, that you would like to change, it's courageous to change that, to take those steps and put in that hard work to make that change. So be proud of yourself for that. Be proud of yourself for reaching out. And yeah, thank you again for what you do. It's been a pleasure.
thank you. I've enjoyed this. So
Yeah.
we'll we'll just tell everybody to have a wonderful day
Yeah.
and best to everything to everybody.
Yeah. Absolutely. You as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.